Good morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson, and we're continuing our study of the book of Esther, and we're going to read chapter 7 today. The Lord has already really secured rescue for the Jews, even though the Lord isn't named, in chapter 6, because Mordecai has been elevated. And even Haman's own wife and friends know that, that his own downfall is inevitable, and they tell him so. And while they're telling him this, he is ushered to the presence of Queen Esther to join the banquet that Esther has arranged for him and for King Xerxes, King Ahasuerus. I cannot improve upon the storytelling or the economy of storytelling in Esther chapter 7, so I will just read it to you. Now the king and Haman came to drink wine with Esther the queen. And the king said to Esther on the second day, also as they drank their wine at the banquet, "What is your petition, Queen Esther? It shall be granted to you. And what is your request? Even to half of the kingdom it shall be done for you." And Queen Esther answered and said, "If I have found favor in your sight, O king, and it please the king, let my life be given to me as my petition, and my people as my request. For we have been sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be killed, and to be annihilated. Now, if we'd only been sold as slaves, men and women, I would have remained silent, for the trouble would not be commensurate with annoying the king." Then King Ahasuerus asked Queen Esther, "Who is he? Where is he? Who would presume to do this?" And Esther said, "A foe and an enemy is the wicked Haman." Then Haman became terrified before the king and queen. And the king arose in his anger from drinking wine and went into the palace garden. But Haman stayed to beg life from Queen Esther, for he saw that harm had been determined against him by the king. Now when the king returned from the palace garden to the place where they were drinking wine, Haman had fallen on the couch where Esther was. And the king said, "Will he even assault the queen with me here in the house?" As the word went out of the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. And Harbonah, one of the eunuchs who were before the king, said, "Behold, indeed, the gallows standing at Haman's house, 50 cubits high, which Haman made for Mordecai, who spoke good on behalf of the king." And the king said, "Hang him on it." So they hanged Haman on the gallows, which he had prepared for Mordecai, and the king's anger subsided. I love that last phrase. Well, if we impale him 75 feet up, will that make you happy? Well, it just might. Um, it's amazing what has happened here and how quickly it happened. You know, when his wife tells him, "You're toast," um, you know, he is hurried over to this banquet that Esther's going to have, and the king says, "I'll give you anything, even to half the kingdom," because he loves her so much. And she said, "I just want my life, and I want my people to be able to live, even if they get sold into slavery. I just want them to live." And he said, "What are you talking about? Who presumed to do this, to arrange for your death and the death of your people?" And she said, "Haman." And he's so angry that he walks out into the garden, just next to where they're eating, in his rage. And Haman, knows that this is going to be awful, and he wants to beg mercy from the queen. And they would have been reclining around a table. He would have been on his knees begging, and then falling on the queen, touching her. Oh, heavens, no, you can't do that. And so the king's the king's, excuse me, I started to say Social Security. That's silly. The king's secret service, his guard, the minute that Haman fell onto the queen, they they literally put a sack over his head. They covered him up, and the king came back in and saw it all, and he said, "I cannot believe this guy's trying to assault the queen, even in my presence, standing here." And so, the Harbonah, one of the king's eunuchs, said, "Listen, he had made a gallows for Mordecai, who saved your life, by the way. You want us to go hang him on it? And he says yes. And so they go and they literally impale him on a gallows that is built 75 feet high and leave him there to die impaled and for the birds to eat him, his carcass, as he is dying and after he dies. And the king's anger subsided. So it happened so quickly, it happened exactly according to plan. And whose plan? It happened according to God's plan. And it's interesting that something God commanded to happen all the way back in 1 Samuel that Saul failed to do is now accomplished all the way over in Persia because the Amalekites are going to be completely wiped out, or at least they will be whenever his sons meet the same fate. Okay, we'll talk about that next time. Thank you for joining for another 5 good minutes with the Word.